Why is keto so good for weight loss? Hi, I'm Dr. Eric Westman, and welcome to my channel where I review and debunk nutritional misinformation online. In this video, why is keto so good for weight loss? We're going to hear a PhD doctor, talk through the various reasons why it helps people lose weight. In fact, it's a pretty good video. Wait till the end till you hear my final thoughts. Before we get started on today's video, I wanted to personally invite you to join me in the next 3-week Keto Made Simple program, which is opening for enrollment on May 1st. I call it Keto Made Simple because it's exactly that. You don't have to calculate macros, you don't need to measure ketones, you don't have to weigh and measure your food, and you don't need to do any fasting. You'll learn the exact same proven method that I use with my patients. This is the last time the program will include 3 weeks of support with me and my team, so join the waitlist now to guarantee your spot. See the link in the description.
Hey folks, Dr. Mike here for Renaissance Periodization. I have a question for you. Why does keto seem to work so well for weight loss? In fact, it does. And I can think of a few reasons, and I can think of a few ways to make keto better for yourself that if you're into it for weight loss, you can get even better results with fewer downsides, fewer inconveniences. So why does keto work so well? There are 4 good reasons. One is that if you switch to keto, which means cutting out almost or pretty much all carbs, your junk food options become very reduced. And the way that most people get fatter and stay fatter is they eat a lot of junk. Let's go through a quick list of junk. Pizza, ice cream, cookies, cakes, candies, cheeseburgers, pastas, Chinese food, soda. Need I go on?
Well, and that was apparent to me, 25 years ago, learning about keto or low carb or LCHF or various names it's been under. But today, actually, there are keto junk foods that are out there. So be careful. Yes, you don't eat the traditional high sugar, starchy junk foods. I don't want you to eat the keto junk foods that are out there either. So if you're new to my channel, you'll realize quickly that I use total carbs, not net. And I want you to eat real food, not fake food. And yet a lot of patients think keto means having keto bread and keto ice cream. And no, these are not prescription strength meal replacement kinds of things for a keto diet. But he's spot on. You're not eating the junk food that so many people are properly calling out as being harmful.
Potato chips. Which one of those food or food groups or food types did not have a ton of carbs in it? All of them have a ton of carbs in there. So if you say I'm keto, when you're a regular person, most people who do keto are just regular folks, not super into lifting or anything like that. They look around the food they're allowed to eat, and it turns out that none of it's very junky. And junk food isn't somehow toxic or kills you in some weird way. Some of it is some preservatives, which aren't ideal for your health, but it's a really small thing. The real kicker with junk food is that it's so delicious and so packed with calories, you're going to end up eating a lot of it, and that's going to confer so many calories, you're going to gain weight. You're going to eat more calories than you actually burn. But when you switch to keto, what you eating them calories with, dog? What you cheating on? Chicken breast and olive oil and nuts and fatty meats. How much of that can you eat until you're like, nah, I'm full? Because junk food is almost entirely off limits for keto, that is one of the #1 reasons why people who do keto often get a lot of weight loss, because they're able to excise junk food essentially completely from their diet or almost completely for months on end, because it's cause #1 of weight gain and failure to lose weight. When it leaves, you just lose weight like crazy. Number 2.
A little nuance in here. If you just said that it's because you're not eating junk food. No, there are a lot of other diets that take out the junk food that don't lead to weight loss, and fat loss is what people are trying to get. You have to calorie restrict on other types of diets. And I don't think he really understands that. Again, consider the context. He's not at the moment trying to lose weight personally. And yes, a lot of other people are trying to lose weight. But when he says, what are you going to cheat on? He doesn't understand that there's a fundamental reduction in hunger for most people, so that they don't really want to cheat. And then the kind of thumbing up the nose at not having tasty foods, again, just hasn't tried or gotten into a deep look at all the different variety of foods you can have. You're going to hear also that he talks about normal foods, like those things he just talked about as normal foods. Normal doesn't mean optimal. And then also consider the source, though, that he is probably talking to an audience of people who don't need to lose fat weight anymore. They're trying to optimize their muscle function, for example. So this is why you're going to hear nuances that I don't think are that important, or maybe different, for people who are trying to reverse metabolic disease.
Some people, not all, get an appetite lowering effect from reducing the carbohydrates and switching to a mostly protein and fat diet. That's not dependably true for most people.
So I disagree, but it may be the context. People coming to me trying to lose weight, it's almost 100%. The appetite goes away and people automatically lose weight when they're doing it right. And that's going to be a big thing at the end. How do you do this right? Well, so most people do have appetite reduction when it's done right. But that may not be true in the context of people who are at their weight goal and they're trying to optimize their muscle, not their metabolic health. So that, again, he's going to talk about selection bias, and I think that's important to consider what you're trying to accomplish with the dietary pattern that you're eating.
But some people have a really awesome response where after a few days of eating very few carbs, they're actually just not that hungry. Combine that lack of hunger with the fact that keto doesn't exactly offer the tastiest junk food choices, and you're just eating less food. And
I don't know, maybe he hasn't had all of the different types of bacon and cheese that I've had lately. Again, it's a different type of food that can be enjoyable, I suppose.
Eating less food is absolutely the #1 key ingredient to almost every fat loss diet that's ever successful. So if you are one of these people, you can have great success with keto, and almost everyone that has great success with keto, and don't worry, they'll be in the comment section telling us about how great keto is and they're not wrong. Those are the people who have the genetics.
Did you sense a little defensiveness there?
That take their appetite and reduce it when they switch to keto. Some people, it just makes them extra fucking hungry. They'll never see them espousing keto because they failed every time they tried it. So if that is an effect for you, my recommendation is give it a week or two. In the first week, you could be kind of recovering from your carb withdrawal and you just want more carbs. But after a week or two, you might get a very lowered appetite sensation, and that's really awesome. Use that to keep your calories low and constrained, eat keto, and you'll lose a bunch of weight. If after a few weeks you're still ravenous, maybe it's not for you. Next.
So the most common reason I see people still hungry on a keto diet is they're eating too many carbs. They're using net carbs and not total carbs. They're under the false assumption that they need to eat more to lose weight. So there actually is a method to trying to troubleshoot if it's not working for you. And even, yes, the appetite suppression should come very quickly, unless in the context of a medical clinic, like if you're watching this, you're on medications like insulin, you're on medications like prednisone or other steroids, including steroid nasal sprays. Those things can thwart the appetite reduction and you may still feel hungry even though you're doing a keto diet.
Keto can be really straightforward, but because it constrains your choices, you end up having just dependable choices throughout the day that you can lean into and eat. And that regularity, that consistency prescribes a similar amount of calories over each day. And if you're at a deficit, which you probably are on keto, because it's really hard to eat enough calories when you take out carbs entirely, you end up being successful.
I don't agree. You can eat plenty of calories on a keto diet, and what it does though is it matches really what you need after you deduct what you're taking from your fat store. So again, it's interesting to hear the nuance in the language here when actually, yes, the limited or reduced choices makes it simpler. And I have some people who they're happy eating the same 5 foods every day for years. There are other people who feel like they need a new, different food every day. And they're a little more difficult to get satisfied on a diet like this. I totally agree. But then we come up with substitutions like sending away for flavored pork rinds instead of chips, sending away or getting microwavable pork rinds instead of popcorn, having cauliflower rice or cauliflower mashed potato instead of potatoes, making jicama fries instead of French fries, having pasta made from shirataki noodles instead of the regular pasta that's super high in carbs. So there are substitutions for a lot of the things that people, oh, well, and then of course the chaffle is the best bread substitution that just came out in the last, I don't know, 5 years. Popularity of using a waffle maker, but having a different batter. You use eggs and cheese for the batter. So it's a very low carb waffle called a chaffle. Check it out.
So you might have a keto bar or two you eat for breakfast. You might have some eggs and chicken.
No keto bars, please. They're just not low enough, and it's getting into the keto junk foods.
You eat for lunch. You might have some lean steak and some veggies and some mushrooms or something you eat for dinner. And that's kind of like what you stick to. You're not apt to go and try to find all kinds of tasty, crazy foods with pasta this and macaroni that, because that's all off limits.
No, think of those substitutions that I meant.
Point number 4, there is a sense in which keto works well to lose weight, which is really fat. But keto also has this magical effect of getting you right into a diet because it lowers your body water tremendously. Carbohydrates plus the salt intake that is occurring anytime you eat junk food, those two things together bring in tons of water with them, carbs and salt. And when you start doing keto, you lose your intramuscular carbohydrate stores, or they get severely reduced, substantially. It's not a bad thing. And your salt intake generally also falls considerably. What ends up happening is you lose 5, 10, sometimes 15 pounds in the first week or two, mostly off of body water reducing. That obviously is going to come back when you start eating carbs and salt and regular food again.
Well, so I like so the physiology is correct. And the depletion of glycogen doesn't happen. He corrected himself nicely, and that there is a reduction of muscle glycogen, but there's not a depletion. Your body will actually keep glycogen formed from the protein that you eat and from glucose that's made, gluconeogenesis, to keep a glycogen store for emergencies. The water loss that I typically see is not 10 to 15 the first 2 weeks. It's more like 5 to 10 that I typically see. And it does give people motivation. But I look at it a little differently. It's extra fluid that making you feel bloated. It's fluid that, again, this might be a different context where if he's teaching people who are already fit, they're not metabolically ill. But if you have lots of weight to lose and you have bloating, a lot of that is water weight. If you have swelling in the ankles, for example, you're on diuretic pills, you have extra fluid around. And what I see this doing is just normalizing, getting rid of the extra water instead of causing a water loss and then you'll regain all the water. That's kind of an old, there was a paper in the 1980s that went for 1 week on a keto diet. They called it low carb or Atkins at the time. And after the week, they refed carbohydrate and all the weight came back. And so they said, see, it's just water weight in that first week. Well, I had visited Dr. Atkins, Dr. Eads, Dr. Rosedale, the Eads had already retired. I had visited doctors who were using the clinic in a clinical program based on this, and it was clearly more than just 1 week of water loss and then people regain it. There was fat loss going on at the same time, and then continued fat loss over, years. So that kind of false assumption that it's all water weight and it'll all come back. No, not if you've lost 50, 100, 200 pounds of fat and you now gain 2 pounds of water here, you're not going to be regaining all the weight unless you do it for a week and then you refeed carbs, and sure, it'll come back.
Now, if you want the optimum results for muscle growth, for muscle retention, for your best lean physique, for energy, for athletic performance.
So there he points out the people who are watching his channel, those are the things they want. The muscle gain, the athletic performance. And so this advice is not based on, helping people lose hundreds of pounds over years, which is my experience. And so this is why we get different types of recommendations. Whose keto diet are you doing? Are you doing a total carb or net carb kind of approach? Are you eating keto junk foods when really you really should be eating real food, not fake foods on any sort of diet?
Doing a more balanced diet that has enough carbs to do what you need to do with your body at the highest level, a diet like the RP Diet Coach app can prescribe to you, you will get better results than with keto. But if you respond well to keto, if you get that appetite suppression effect, if you actually can do keto in a way that's sustainable, which means you have good food choices around that you can make around keto, you can do keto and it works absolutely great. It's not ideal by a small few percentage points, but as long as you're not trying to compete in bodybuilding or something or be the best athlete you can be or have the ripped, most chiseled physique, keto is a great option if it works for you.
Well, so that was interesting. He made a claim that their diet was better than a keto diet. I'd like to see the study on that. It could be that certain individuals' experiences are better, but it's hard to make a claim. No, you really can't make that claim unless there's a head-to-head kind of study. This kind of reminds me of the documentary films out there, Serial Killers, C-E-R-E-A-L, not S-E-R-I-A-L. Serial Killers, and then Serial Killers 2, which are documentary films that look at elite athletes using low-carb keto diets and running on fat for fuel. In fact, one of the ultramarathon champions of the world, Zach Bitter, runs ultramarathons running on fat for fuel, not carbs. And that reminded me of an old book, The Ketogenic Diet by Lyle McDonald, that had the lore of all of these different bodybuilding sorts of things, things to do to before and after bodybuilding. That's not my clinical situation, and this may be why they may have come up with something that is tangibly better for some people. But he's careful to say, if keto is working for you, don't give me grief, or don't. It's like he's a little defensive, isn't it?
But if it doesn't work for you, remember, it's not magical. If you're trying to cut the carbs and it never works, you get crazy hungry, you get crazy low energy, there's no appetite suppression ever, and the food choice restrictions are really limiting and you hate your life, stop trying keto, at least for a bit. Try something like the RP Diet Coach app. Try something just regular eating good, high-quality, healthy food, lower your calories, increase your activity, and you're going to get amazing results.
I think that's great advice. And no, keto is not something everyone needs to do. I don't say that yet. In fact, if you looked at my book, my latest book, End Your Carb Confusion, it came out a couple of years ago. It's a white book with purple lines on it. And Your Carb Confusion actually has 3 different carb levels. It's not an entirely keto book. It brings in the science from low glycemic and low carbohydrate science, the Harvard group, the Stanford group, the Duke group where I am, and it gives you an idea of what we think might be your carb level by taking a quiz in the book. So be sure to, if it doesn't seem to be working for you, maybe it's not the right fit, or maybe you're not doing it in an easy, simple way that gives you the best results. That's what I typically teach in my clinic at Duke, and my company, Adapt Your Life. Adapt Your Life Academy teaches people online a simple version of how to do this.
There are 2 stumbling blocks in keto. One is the people who don't do the diet properly or who it's not for, and they fail at the very beginning, first 2 weeks. The next stumbling block, and the last one with keto, is when people exit out the other end. Unless you're saying to yourself you're never going to eat pizza and pasta and rice and cookies ever again, which in that case, good job, you joined a cult and they don't let you have any fun.
Well, hang on. Isn't the typical American diet kind of a cult? That's an interesting perspective. I don't join it. I could scrape off the toppings of meat lovers pizza, just not eat the crust and exist in a world that's all carb eating. I could go to a Italian restaurant and just not eat the pasta on the plate and still be part of the having fun. Anyway, it's an interesting perspective. The low carb, keto, carnivore type approaches do sometimes seem like a cult, and I think that's because of the transformative experience that many people have as a result of it.
The way to exit keto is strategic. Here's how you would do it. First, when you do keto, make sure you have plenty of lean proteins, plenty of healthy fats, and I recommend always, or almost always in every meal, a good serving of green veggies. They don't have a lot of calories, they have barely any carbohydrate at all. The fiber and the micronutrients are awesome. If you don't have those in there, you should. But if you don't, layer them in first for a week or two after the end of your keto diet, when you lost as much weight as you think you can lose for that period, and it's really getting annoying and tiring and hard. The next few weeks, layer fruits in, just fresh fruit. They have very few carbs. The carbs are almost always insanely low glycemic, so they don't crazy spike your blood sugar. You're not going to get this insane lack of energy and lethargy that you get to have when carbs re-enter the system. You're going to be buzzing. Everything's going to be feeling great. If that feels good for a week or 2 or 3, try to reintroduce small amounts of grains, some whole grain pasta, some brown rice, some quinoa, some shit like that, some beans. Once you got veggies in there and you got fruit in there in most meals of the day and some grains, man, you're not keto anymore. You're eating plenty of carbohydrate. Raise the amounts of those as you see fit to fit your lifestyle choices, your preferences, and make sure your body weight is stable. And then all of a sudden, you're successfully out. You're off-ramped from keto and everything's going just fine. And now you're eating carbs, but they're healthy carbs. That right there should form the core of your diet from there on out. And then if you want to eat some BS on the weekends, some pizza, some chips, great. But now because you're used to carbs, it's not going to cause you to gain a ton of pounds, just a few pounds. And then after a few days of the next week when you're eating clean again, it goes back to normal.
Well, that's interesting to hear. In my book, End Your Carb Confusion, I do talk about adding back carbs, and doing it slowly is the thing that I've learned, and that's what he says, just add back slowly. But as he was talking about adding back grains, I saw the people I see in my clinic who have gotten over their celiac disease and other issues with their stomach that they can't have grains again. And so, again, it's looking at the context, what we're talking about in the clinical situation. If someone has reversed their diabetes and their inflammatory and irritable bowel diseases, and you may not want to go back to the, normal, again, the normal, typical American diet, the acronym is the SAD diet, the standard American diet, SAD because it's so bad. So again, the idea that you have to go back to those things, I'm not so sure you do anymore, because the science about staying in a keto sort of metabolism is so strong, and it may be about preferences or every now and then being with friends and having things, fine, and I think having every now and then alcohol and other sorts of things is fine, as long as it doesn't knock you off the program. And as you're just starting, and if you have a long journey, you want to just stay away from those things that are very tempting and that might knock you off. And again, this is a really good video from the perspective of someone who's teaching people who are trying to optimize their muscle weight, and keto can help you with that as well.
Everything's great. And then if you ever want to try keto again to lose some more weight, well, you take out the grains, you take out the fruits, you leave in the veggies, you start keto. A few weeks later, you feel amazing again, keto, low appetite. You do that for another 8 to 10 weeks. You get all your results, and then you ease back out with veggies, fruits, whole grains, and then normal foods. And that ease out period in total can be a week, and it can be 4 weeks long. Only continue to add in carbs as the carbs you have in make you feel good and energetic and calm and at peace, and your digestion feels good. Don't just add in veggies one day, next day add in fruits, next day add in whole grains, the day after have a whole pizza. That's too fast. Ease in, take your time, and you can ease into keto and ease out of keto, and then keto works really well. And if it works for you, it's super recommended, it's super healthy, it's super awesome, and I encourage your best results.
Yeah, I think that was a good video for a relatively healthy population who are trying to just lose some fat and gain some muscle. It doesn't give the caveats, or, we got to watch out if you're on medications. From the clinical standpoint, again, that's my bailiwick. And I think, though, the common themes of fat weight is what you're looking for to lose. When you're losing weight, it's fat weight loss. Keto does that because it turns you into a fat burning machine. I wish he had talked a little more about that. But anyway, maybe that's the depth of understanding that his followers don't really want, because that fat burning actually gives you other benefits along the way. But in general, I think it's gratifying to see for me, this being used now in many different ways, because 25 years ago when we were starting this, everyone thought it was bad, starting the research on this, that is. And now with the perspective of 25 years, we're seeing it be used in so many different ways. Hope you like this video. If you do, please like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, and watch for new content on Wednesdays and Fridays. If you enjoyed this video, consider joining our YouTube membership for early access and exclusive live Q&As with me. Just click the join button below or support us with a PayPal in the description.